So Joe Rogan had on this guy, Coleman Hughes, on his podcast. And how would I describe Coleman Hughes? Coleman Hughes he sort of made a name for himself by being the young intellectual black guy who makes an argument against like affirmative action and race-based programs that try to, level out inequities. That's kind of how he made a name for himself. And, against reparations, things of that nature. And he makes the argument, like, I'm in favor of the old school idea, the MLK ideal of colorblindness. I don't like race-based specific programs. That's sort of how he came to prominence. He sort of reminds me of like a young black Sam Harris too. He's very Sam Harris-like in terms of his ideology, but also his delivery. He's got like the I'm the calm, rational guy way of communicating. He also randomly released a rap song. Okay. So anyway, this guy's been on the scene doing podcasts and whatnot for probably a few years now. So Joe Rogan had him on, and they got into a debate here about what's happening in Gaza and what Israel is doing. And I'm not going to lie to y'all, this one was infuriating. It was infuriating. Hearing the stuff Coleman was saying so confidently while being dead wrong was like a slap in the face. So let's listen, and we'll break it down as we go here.
I listened to your podcast with Kurt Metzger, who I know, and I've been on his podcast, had a great time on his pod.
He's a fun dude.
He is. But I think I disagree with you both kind of on the Israel issue, on the idea. There was one point where you were kind of saying it's almost as if the Jews are doing what was done to them, as if it's genocide.
I'm saying that when you're killing 30,000 innocent civilians in response to something that killed 1,200 innocent civilians, and you're continuing to bomb an area into oblivion, which is what it looks like when you're looking at Gaza. There's many people that have made the argument that that is at least the steps of genocide or a form of genocide. You're destroying thousands and thousands of people's homes and killing them.
So when you say 30,000 civilians, it's not 30,000 civilians that have been killed, though.
How many thousands have been killed?
So according to Gaza Health Ministry, which is run by Hamas, the number they have is 32,000, but they don't distinguish between Hamas and civilians.
How many members of Hamas are there?
40,000, something like that. I don't think the number is known, but it's tens of thousands. So Hamas says 32,000 people have been killed, civilians and soldiers. Israel says 13,000 soldiers have been killed by Israel. So if you let's not doubt either number. They could both be inflated. But if both of those numbers are accurate, which they may or may not be, that would be 13,000 soldiers killed, 19,000 civilians killed, which for urban combat in the Middle East is a very normal ratio.
So let's just make the obvious point right off the bat here. He's saying over 50% civilian death rate. That's normal. An over 50% civilian death rate is normal. Well, look, I got news for Coleman if that's his standard. October 7th, depending on which number you believe, Hamas killed anywhere from 55% civilians to 75% civilians. It's kind of in the range of what he's saying is acceptable. It's acceptable. It's normal for the region. So let's just acknowledge the fact that right off the bat, he's taking the IDF's perception of the numbers also, which, by the way, we've gone through this in detail. And what the IDF does is they say, we are counting every military age male as a combatant. Now, that is just objectively untrue. It is the least accurate way you could possibly count this. He objects to when Joe says over 30,000 civilians have been killed. He objects to that and says that's not true. No, Coleman, you're the one that's wrong. That absolutely is true. So these numbers I have here, which I use all the time, it's the human rights group Euromed Monitor. We use their numbers. Their numbers, from my perspective, are definitely more accurate than the UN or any other human rights group, for the simple reason that they count the people who've been lying under the rubble for weeks as dead. Others don't count those people as dead. So that's why you get a number like, whatever, the UN's at 30 or 32,000 dead total. Euromed Monitor is at 41,496 dead total. And of those, they say 37,676 are civilians. That's what they say. Now, these are the numbers with the best methodology, in my opinion. Let me repeat that. 37,676 civilians dead. 41,496 Palestinians dead total. So, according to these numbers, the overwhelming majority, over 90%, are civilians. That includes 15,370 children, 9,671 women. So, just as a factual matter here, Coleman is wrong. As a factual matter. But even if you take him at face value and use his numbers, he just told you that over a 50% civilian death rate is par for the course and acceptable in a war in the Middle East. I'm not okay with that. And no reasonable person should be okay with that. And if you're somebody who likes this notion of caring about international law, caring about human rights, having a system that's rational and reasonable, nobody should be okay with over 50% civilian death rate. That's like you come across a situation, theoretically here, let's say, you got two Hamas guys in a house, but you also have two children and one of the Hamas guys' wives. So a woman, two children, and two Hamas guys in a house. And what Coleman is saying is, if Israel decides to press that button and kill those two children and that woman, it's par for the course. It is what it is. It's not necessarily condemnable. It's not, a war crime. It's not a problem. It's just this is war in the Middle East. It's disturbing to me that anybody could think like that. But also, putting aside that, he's also just wrong as a factual matter because he believes the IDF's propaganda when they give their numbers, which again, even by their own numbers, they kill over 50% civilians.
I see what you're saying if you wanted to look at it cold and objectively. Yeah. But
well, I hope it doesn't come across cold because...
But it's mostly women and children.
No, it doesn't come across cold. Did you kill 60% civilians? Say la vie. What are you going to do? That's not cold, Coleman. Not at all.
They're dying because they're in a place where these terrorists are, right? I mean, it's not...
Because the terrorists on purpose embed themselves with the civilian population,
right,
which is a war crime.
Right, which is a strategy that they have clearly employed. When you see them, and when the IDF went into that hospital and found Hamas...
Just recently?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's real. It's not just a conspiracy theory. We know that that's real. But it's still, you're still talking about 20,000, whatever it is, of innocent people getting bombed into the Stone Age. And then there's this, like... What are the pressures that are being put on people that are trying to deliver aid? How difficult is it?
So my understanding of the aid issue, and I've looked into it quite a bit, is that the aid is getting into Gaza.
Already wrong. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Guys, go back and look. We've done, Jesus, I don't even know how many at this point. 30 different really long deep dives into all the updates happening in Israel on the ground. And the number that I came across in our segment on this was Israel is blocking 70% of the humanitarian aid from getting in. And they go and they explain the specifics. They explain the details. I don't remember exactly which source it is, but it is in those videos that I've done, and you can see the source, and they say that the IDF will unload all of the stuff off of every aid truck. Then they'll go through it with a fine-tooth comb, and if they find one thing on the truck that they don't like, they'll turn the whole truck around. So one article said... in fact, hold on, I might actually have it here. 1 in 4, they say? Yeah. The UN, Gaza, fewer than 1 in 4 aid missions given green light. So what they do is they'll say, oh, look, I know you have food on this thing. I know you have water. I know you have medicine that's desperately needed. I know you have anesthesia. I know you have all these basics that people need to live. But sorry, we're not going to let it in. Why? Well, you also have tents on this truck. And I know that they need tents in Gaza because you destroyed hundreds of thousands of homes. So they need somewhere to sleep. So you brought in tents. But the pipe for the tent can be used, theoretically, to make a weapon. So we're going to turn the whole truck around. It's death by bureaucracy on purpose. Death by red tape. That's what they're doing. And he went out there and confidently said, I did it. I looked into this. And the aid's actually getting in. And you're never going to guess the next point of his argument. But Hamas, right? The 30,000 Hamas people are hoarding all of the goods, even though there's 2.3 million people in Gaza.
They've gotten over 1/4 ton of food into Gaza since the beginning of the war, which is pretty similar to the food that was getting in. The problem is it's not getting to the people, especially in the north, because the north is a war zone. So it's getting through the border. Israel's allowing it in. But then what happens
not true.
is the IDF doesn't control the delivery. The delivery is controlled by humanitarian organizations like UNRWA and just a whole bevy of humanitarian organizations. And they have these aid convoys going to people, but then Hamas hijacks it, random gang of people, Palestinians hijack it.
This is embarrassing, Coleman. He's making the claim Israel's letting in all the humanitarian aid, but then Hamas just steals it all. There's 30,000 Hamas members. There's 2.3 million people in Gaza, or there were, before a bunch of them were murked and are being starved to death. It's just Hamas. Like, somebody should keep a tally of the number of things that Israel does that they then deflect blame and say, but Hamas! That list has got to be like 100 things long that Israel directly does, but then they turn around and go, but Hamas did it.
And it's an absolute mess in terms of distributing the aid. And that's why you see, and there was a problem in the war in Iraq too.
What was the case when it was being reported? It's very difficult to know when, you're getting the Hamas version of a story and then you're getting the Israeli version of a story. What happened when there was the aid truck and people started getting shot?
The one last night.
No, it was a while ago.
Oh, okay. So yes, that
one?
That was a couple weeks ago. That I don't have the full detailed version up to date of what happened there.
In other words, when you present something to me that is incredibly undeniable, that Israel acts aggressively, offensively, murks some 20-year-old boys with no weapons walking alone on a dirt road, I don't have the full story of events to really explain why that's okay in this situation, but I'm sure there is some series of events that could say that. Or the Flower Massacre. Like, when presented with the undeniable, this is obviously barbaric, savage aggression, murdering civilians on purpose. It's, I don't know, the details, bro. Things might be a little different than what it plainly shows with our eyes and ears and all the evidence in front of us. I wouldn't form any conclusions based off I wouldn't form any conclusions based off the concentration camps where Palestinians have had limbs amputated because they've had zip ties around their legs for 4 months straight. I wouldn't draw any conclusions from that, bro. Some concentration camps are not all that concentration-y and stuff. You know what I'm saying?
But I believe it had something to do with a clash between the IDF and other Palestinians that were involved in distributing the aid. Because
totally untrue. All these things are just totally... There was a Hamas and there was a clash and Israel defending itself. Something like that.
You have Hamas, but you also have powerful families in Gaza that you could call them sort of criminal syndicates or whatever, but they're powerful, important families as well that are also taking the aid sometime. And these are the families that if Israel is allowed and goes into Rafah and defeats Hamas, one of the possibilities is that they want to get these powerful Palestinian families to take over the Gaza Strip. And these people are also involved in the distribution of aid, or in the hoarding of aid, or in the stealing of aid, or in the taking of aid and then selling it for very high prices on the secondary market, which is why it may not be getting to everyone in the north.
So are those the people that the Israeli soldiers shot?
No, I think it turned into it could have been a panic firefight, and they killed civilians.
What caused the panic firefight?
I don't think there's details. That I don't know.
I don't know what caused the fight. It couldn't just be that Israel saw, hey, there are Palestinians. Let's kill them. That's exactly what it is. And I don't know what do you need? 748 videos during that? Were the 747 not enough? Oh my God, this is so insufferable.
The accusation was that they were shooting people that were trying to get aid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you don't think that's the case?
I think it's very unlikely.
Is it possible?
Yeah, it's possible. Absolutely. My assumption is that there is going to be war crimes in this war.
Right.
Because, and I know.
Very passive. Fact of the matter, when it's Hamas, these are barbarian savages, October 7th, killing innocent people. When it's Israel, war crimes happen. Life sucks, bro. Know what I'm saying? It is what it is, homie. Like, come on, man. Jesus Christ.
Kurt would probably say I'm doing the tragedy of war thing, but it's
Kurt would say you're a fucking idiot, and he's right. Kurt would say you're an absolute joke who's just gargling the cock of Israeli propaganda on a daily basis. That's what he would say, and Kurt would be 1,000,000% correct.
Legitimate point in every single war, even the just ones. There are war crimes by berserk soldiers, by the good guys.
I love
that
this.
Doesn't mean it's genocide. And that
even the good guys do horrifically evil things, bro. That's why we overlook when you carpet bomb babies. Because sometimes you're carpet bombing babies with good intentions. Now, there are people who do that with bad intentions. Let's criticize them for carpet bombing the babies. But the problem is not that they carpet bomb the babies, it's that they did it with the bad intentions. When we do it with the good intentions, that overrides the carpet bombing of the babies as a bad thing. You understand? Very highfalutin moral compass here that I'm explaining to you. Maybe you're too dumb to understand it. Maybe you're just too dumb to understand it.
I mean, it's not a just war.
That is a very important point, the war crimes thing, because I think when you're asking someone to follow and obey rules, when you're also asking them to murder people that they don't even know, and that these are the bad people. Like, you have it in your head that those are the people that you have to kill, and you're getting shot at, and you're watching your friends die, and you're, 2 years into this now, whatever it is, when you're in Ukraine, for instance, you're 2 years into it, getting shot at, and like, I'm sure they do some horrific shit if they catch people, or if they get someone that they think is on the other side, or someone who looks like they're on the other side. It's you're asking a person to do an insanely evil and horrific thing, but then stop when the rules don't apply. And some people are not going to do that.
That's right. And I think that the fundamental difference between Israel and Hamas is Israeli society, however imperfectly, is not going to celebrate the monsters on their own side when they're really found to be monsters. They're not gonna hand out candies to people who kill Palestinian civilians like Hamas does.
Are you fucking kidding me? One of the top songs on the charts in Israel right now is a genocidal anthem. Israel's not going to celebrate their bad guys. When something bad happens, they go, that's really bad, and we're against that. Remember this story? In 2003, an Israeli bulldozer drove over and crushed U.S. peace activist Rachel Corrie. In 2013, Israeli soldiers held a Rachel Corrie pancake and fun party to celebrate that she was flattened. Those are the IDF heroes exercising the right to self-defense in Gaza. And here are the pictures of the Rachel Corrie pancake party, because they were celebrating when a peace activist got flattened into a fucking pancake by a bulldozer when she was trying to stop a Palestinian doctor's house from being taken down illegally. How do you even respond to Coleman? They have entire, Telegram channel or Slack channel? We covered the specifics of it, but there's an entire channel where they will share, the IDF soldiers will share massive war crimes they committed. I killed a grandma. I killed a child. Whatever it may be. And they'll post it and they'll brag about it. And everybody in the group with them will laugh. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, you go do those war crimes. Hooray. IDF TikTok is full of them committing war crimes, killing innocent civilians. We covered a story the other week. Killed an innocent civilian, an old man on the ground like this. Killed him. Then they all get in a circle and jack each other off about how, oh, great kill, bro. You're amazing, bro. Kill those Palestinians, bro. Yeah. We heard forget even the idea of social, top Israeli government officials, military officials go out. They say we're Amalek, the story of Amalek in the Bible of we need to kill them. They're including their women and their children and their suckling and their ox or whatever fucking weird language it was in the Bible. You have Netanyahu saying we're the forces of light against the forces of darkness. What he's saying could not be further from the truth. It could not be further from the truth. They are at the point, they are a psychotic ethno-state and theocracy, hell-bent on bloodlust. In fact, there was a poll that said only 4% of Israelis thought the IDF was using too much force in Gaza, and this was when we were already a month or two into it, and you already had like 12,000 innocent civilians killed. What are we talking about? The idea that they don't revel in their brutality, that they don't celebrate their bad guys. Fucking of course they do. We're seeing it day in and day out. They think we're the good guys by definition, so no matter what we do, it's acceptable. And that gets me to my final point about Coleman here. And this is his problem. Funny enough, I said earlier, he reminds me of like a younger black version of Sam Harris. He's got the Sam Harris syndrome. Sam Harris syndrome is this comical, just comic book idea that we live in a world where, well, us people in the West, us and our allies, we're the good guys. We mean well. We have the proper Enlightenment values, liberal values. Therefore, when we do something bad, when we do something wrong, when we do something evil, when we do some war crime or whatever, it doesn't really count. Because we're not doing it with malicious, nefarious intentions. We're doing it with all the good intentions, and we're just saying the ends justify the means, and sometimes you gotta break a couple legs to make an omelet, you know what I'm saying? But when our enemies, when they do bad things, when they do evil things, when they do war crimes, that defines them. That defines them as evil, nihilistic, nefarious, bad guys. And they live in this simpleton's world. And therefore, they can't see things in proper context and perspective. They can't see the IDF as doing what they're fucking doing right now. You know, could we really have gotten to this point if Israel didn't celebrate their bad guys? Could we have gotten to 77,000 injured, 136 journalists killed, 2 million homeless out of 2.3 million in Gaza, 122,000 homes completely destroyed, 269,000 homes partially destroyed, 443 schools that have been attacked? You would think by school number 3, 4, maybe 8, it's like, hey, maybe they're doing this on purpose and they think it's actually good that they're wrecking the schools. But no. Remember when one hospital was attacked and there was a big debate? No, it was a misfired Palestinian thing. Nope, it was Israel. Here we are, 301 health facilities attacked later, including 29 hospitals, 69 clinics, and 203 ambulances. And people aren't really talking about that anymore now, are they? But Coleman would look at this and he would say, he would either deny the facts and say that's not true, or he would say, well, maybe it is true, but I'm sure they were all Hamas command and control centers or something. Or every one of them was an accident. All 29 hospitals bombed was an oopsie. Guys, there is no way out of this. The answers are screaming at you. The answers are obvious. And to get to the point where Coleman is, you have to be phenomenally ignorant on the facts or totally drunk on Israeli far-right Hezbollah. I don't know which it is. I don't really care, but he's a fucking idiot. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.